There's a huge problem developing. I want to report on this because this is something that's new, relatively new. It's been festering for a while, but it's changing a lot of things. The dynamic is changing. The dollar is the petrodollar. It's linked to oil, and the oil price, when it's eventually going to go back up in price, was going to have an adverse effect on the dollar, bring the dollar down. Uh, and the dollar down in value, so the dollar's not worth as much. That's what was going to happen. But there's a strange situation developing here, and it's a situation where there's a whole bunch of these elections coming one after another into Europe. The first one is going to start with the brick exit. Well, we've already had that, and we know what the outcome was. That was number one. Number two is the Netherlands, with Geert Wilders. He's most likely going to win in the Netherlands. It's not an absolute, but it's a very strong possibility that he's going to win. The third one is coming shortly thereafter in France with Marine Le Pen. She's most likely going to win in France. And then there's going to be a snap election in Italy. And the five-star movement's most likely going to go into power. And then the German elections are coming up after that. So it's one boom, 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 boom. The way it's setting up is setting up so that the European Union could actually disintegrate and break apart. This is a situation that would cause. The effects of the European Union breaking apart would not remain just in Europe. The effects would come over to here, to America, from this situation. And what would happen in America would be a deflationary shock event. It's possibly the event that certain ones in the financial community have been talking about for a while now. Mike Maloney is one that's talked about a deflationary shock event that would then trigger a hyperinflationary event. He calls it real deflation. There's also other ones that have been looking for this deflation, like Harry Dent, just to name a few. This is a deflationary shock event that would hit and would create a deflationary spiral. It would start in Europe. It would spread to the banking system of the United States. It would be a financial catastrophe. Now, the central bank has already said what they're going to do, and they're going to do exactly the same thing as they did back in 2008. 2008 was the same sort of a thing. It was a deflationary shock event, except there's a difference this time. They've shot their bullets. They've taken interest rates down. They've used quantitative easing. They've used monetary policy and normal monetary policy. This time there's only one thing left. That's hypermonetization. And if you've listened to my videos, you know what I'm talking about when I refer to hypermonetization. It's monetizing like quantitative easing, except more, bigger, better, brighter. And also, then there's helicopter money, which is like quantitative easing, but it's unsterilized. And so what you have is you have this hypermonetization that is, the effect would be, and this is the only thing that they can do to fight a deflationary shock event, like the European Union breaking apart. The only thing that they would have left to do is hypermonetization. And when they pull that trigger on hypermonetization, they are going to let the genie out of the bottle. And so, how does this reflect on a lot of people who are trying to be savers, and they're trying to uh, some of them invest in the stock market, some of them invest in gold and silver, some of them invest their money in the bank, and they keep it in cash in the bank, and keep their money in the bank. These savers. How is it going to affect you? What's the man on the street going to witness when this deflationary shock event comes across the ocean and hits America and hits Canada? This is what you want to know. You want to know what the effect on you is going to be. Well, first off, when the deflationary shock event first hits, if you've been saving your money in the bank, that money, its buying power will probably go up at first. And your things like treasuries and things like that, the things that are invested in the dollar is going to go up. That's what the first effect, the initial effect of the deflationary shock event is going to be. And the price of gold and silver is going to go down. And it could be actually quite profound before the government can turn this around. It could actually be quite profound. But for you people that hold precious metals, if this deflationary shock event comes across the ocean and hits America like a wave, like a tidal wave, if you sell that when the deflationary shock event's on, and you take a loss, and you get hurt selling your precious metals, what will happen to you then is you have then locked in that loss. You've been shaken loose from the tree. You're like, picture you're a piece of fruit that's up in a tree, and a giant bear's come up, and he's put his bum up against the tree, and he's going like this, and he's shaking you. He's shaking you out of that tree. You better hang on tight, because if you get shook loose and you fall down, that's when you sell. You've just locked in that loss. Because what's going to happen is when the deflationary shock event hits, these things like precious metals are going to go down like this. They're going to spike downwards. But when they hit down to the bottom down there, they're going to shoot back. When the government changes their policy, they're going to shoot back just as fast as they went down. So if you go and you wait until they go down to the bottom like that, down the hole, and then you get shaken loose from the tree, well, you're going to lock in those losses down here, way down here. Yuck. That's right. And then you're going to see it shoot back up, and you're going to say, when it's shooting back up. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to lock that in for yourself and for your kids and for your family. You want to stay tight. Hang on tight while the tree gets shaken. And it won't last long either, because if this deflationary shock event hits, it's going to hit like a tidal wave. The government is going to have to react to it, because just think what would happen to them if they don't react. Can you imagine 90-year-old ladies chasing them down the street with their canes saying, "Where's my Social Security check?" Of course they're gonna yield to this, the government. They were either going to yield to it, or they're going to be grabbed by the ear, and they're going to be pulled down the street by some 90-year-old lady yelling and screaming at them. That's what's going to happen. Seriously. So what do you think they're going to do? They've never done the right thing in their life. They're politicians, for crying out loud. They've never done the right thing in their life, and they're not going to do the right thing this time. The right thing would be is to let this deflationary spiral finish itself out and complete its cycle and cleanse the system. That would be the right thing to do. They've never done the right thing in their life. They're going to yield to it. They're going to cave to it, just like they did in 2008. But there's going to be a little bit of a lag there, because this spike is going to hit so quick. And during the spike, you're going to see what people think things are worth. Like a guy, he might say, well, my house is worth $200,000, right? Well, when this deflationary shock event hits, try to sell it for $200,000. You won't be able to sell it for 200. You won't be able to sell it for 150. You won't be able to sell it for 100. You won't be able to sell it for 50,000. Nobody's going to buy it, because when this thing hits, it's going to be like everything's going to fall in around it. It's sucking everything in like a vortex of deflation. And the only way the government can change that is they're going to have to dump so much money into that this time. $1 trillion ain't going to even, it'll just suck up $1 trillion, it'll go burp. It wants more. They're going to have to suck in tens of trillions and tens of trillions to get this thing to turn around. And when they finally turn the thing around and start to go the other way with it, when they bring in the money bombers and they bomb this thing with money to the point where it finally turns around and starts to yield to them, they will have destroyed, then they will have actually destroyed the confidence in the currency, to the point where the currency will start spiraling then out of control in the opposite direction. And so then your savers, with their money in the bank, that's when your money's going to start to become worthless so fast that you're not going to be able to get out of it quick enough. There's going to be a run to the exits like never been seen before when this happens. And this trigger event very well could be Europe breaking, the falling apart of Europe. Now, I expected the disintegration of the dollar to be a little bit slower event caused by the increase in the price of oil. And that was coming. That definitely was coming. But this event that's coming in Europe might precede or preclude the event of the oil price rising. And it might create this deflationary spike. And it's starting to look more and more like a possibility that that's what's going to actually happen. And so what I was waiting for, things have changed. And so to be a good reporter is to be flexible and see the changes in the environment around me. I've witnessed these changes and I'm reporting them to you. The changes the way I see it. And the changes is the situation that's brewing in Europe right now is a change. And the warning is that I'm giving you is this deflationary spike that could happen once the European Union starts to disintegrate and break to pieces. So watch out for this. This is a developing situation. The thing to watch out for first, very first thing to watch out for, is the election in the Netherlands. The second thing to watch out for is coming very soon thereafter, which is the France elections, the elections in France. Now, if the elections in the Netherlands don't pan out and they don't disrupt the European Union whatsoever, let's just say Geert Wilders doesn't win or whatever, and that doesn't pan out, and they settle back down in the Netherlands and they decide not to do a referendum on leaving the European Union, and everything's good there. And let's say that the second test, France does the same thing. Marine Le Pen loses, and the other guy, Macron, gets in, right? And nothing happens there, and the whole thing settles back down again. Then we can go back to the situation that I was watching for with the oil price rising and the inflation that would ensue. Okay, so we got to watch these two things very carefully, these two elections. First in Netherlands and first in France. And then the third one is going to be this surprise election that's going to come from Italy. And that's a potential hurdle. And I see each one of these elections as being like a hurdle that a jumper has to get over. And so what you're doing is you're watching a big fat kid. He weighs 300 pounds, and he's in the track club. And the coach says, okay, fat kid, you got to run this 100-yard dash, and you got to jump over those 3 or 4 hurdles down there. Right? That's just what we're looking at. And so before the race starts, you can't say, well, the fat kid will never make it. You can't say that. Maybe he'll get over the hurdles. Maybe a miracle will happen. Well, this is the way with the European Union right now. Maybe a miracle will happen. Maybe they'll get through these 4 elections without falling flat on their face. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I know what to watch for. Watch for hurdle 1, 2, 3, and 4, and let's see if the fat kid can get over them. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I enjoy making these videos for you guys. And this what's happening right now should be very exciting. Let's watch it with anticipation, see what happens. Bye-bye for now.